Hey everyone, it's Nicole and today I'm here to talk about The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. It sprung out a lot of great conversations in the comment section of my wrap-up video, which made me postpone this video and think about the way I want to express my opinions about this novel in general. But I finally know what I want to say, and without further ado, let's go into this video. This is a retelling of the Iliad that focuses on Patroclus and Achilles that were major characters in the poem by Homer. Patroclus is a young prince that is exiled to the court of King Peleus and his precious son Achilles. Despite their differences, Achilles and Patroclus become great friends, and soon their friendship blooms into something more. But Achilles' mother, a sea goddess named Thetis, is disapproving of this relationship because she's afraid that Patroclus will stand in the way of Achilles' heroic future. But the word comes that Helen of Sparta was kidnapped and his husband is riding his armies to Troy to get her back, and Achilles must play a part in this war to fulfill his destiny. I feel like a lot of people know what the story is about in general because it's famous, even if you didn't read Homer's poem. It was captured on film many times, and a lot of students learn about the story either during school or during university. First of all, I have to say that I really enjoyed the book. I think it's a very solid adaptation through and through, and despite the fact that I had a very lengthy discussion of it and I don't agree with certain things that happen in this book, I still loved it and I still enjoyed it. What's important to remember if you read the Iliad, and I personally read the Iliad, is that every person that adopts the story and every person that retells the story has a right to tell it in their own way, through the lens of their understanding what happened in this ancient text. When we deal with such old stories, a lot of things are open to interpretation because most of the characters that we encounter in the Iliad already have a lot of myth written about them that don't have to do with the story at all. Some of them even contradict each other because they were written by different people and they were written in different periods of time. In my opinion, Madeline Miller does a great job to modernize the story and to present the story to a modern reader that might not know a lot about the Iliad. For example, she takes Patroclus and makes him an underdog, which immediately gives him some sympathy points. She makes the changes in the story quite boldly. I noticed huge differences, but I didn't care because the story was woven well together, and even though she takes inspiration from different sources, different myth, as I mentioned before, it all makes sense except for a few things, but it didn't undermine my reading experience. She uses classical tropes such as doomed lovers trope to enhance the connection with the reader. It also contains another element, a more deep level, that in my opinion made the story richer. Essentially, the theme of this book that is interwoven throughout the whole story is young and innocent with great perspectives being corrupted by people who want to use them for gain. You cannot even determine a sole villain in this book, because the pressure that society puts on these young boys is the villain itself. If you think about it, Achilles at the start of the book wasn't particularly excited about fighting people at all, but the more the authorities in his life told him that he's not going to be a hero otherwise, the more he realized that he will have to have the fame that he sought to have. Because in the end, it didn't even matter that he was a demigod and a hero when he had such a short, anxious life. A legitimate issue that I've talked about in regards to this book with one of my very attentive viewers is the treatment of women. First of all, of course, we have to realize the period of time when this book was set in. Not a lot of people gave a damn about women, especially if they were not goddesses. It's the period of time where Zeus was kidnapping and raping women and forcing goddesses to marry human men. Women didn't have rights and they were basically properties of their fathers, and if they were raped, it was considered an offense not to the woman who suffered a serious trauma, but to her family. There's a lot of violence, sexual assault and rape in this book. So in one way, of course, it's understandable because these characters were the products of their time and they didn't see anything wrong with these laws, but at the same time, from our lens and from our point of view, it's at least an uncomfortable experience to read these scenes. So if you want to read this book, please be ready to encounter such content as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention in the spoiler-free section is that I enjoyed Achilles' and Patroclus' relationships despite them being modernized. Madeline Miller is decided on the nature of their relationships. It is obvious right away, and some might feel that they're pretty heteronormative, but I wouldn't say so, because despite the fact that Patroclus is not particularly inclined to go into war and he doesn't like killing people, his interests are more directed towards healing people. It doesn't really make him feminine, but also there's nothing wrong with being feminine. He has to save Achilles a lot of times during this book, so I wouldn't call him a coward either. With this, I'm moving into a spoiler section. I think I held this book enough in my hand. When I'm going to put the book down, this spoiler section is going to start. So if you didn't read this book, go read it and then get back to see the second part of this video. This section is going to be feels section because I do have a lot of feelings about this book. First of all, this book is torturous with foreshadowing, especially if you know the story of Iliad. Every time Achilles exclaimed, "What Hector ever done to me?" I wanted to rip hair from my head, because I knew what Hector done to him. And the foreshadowing is especially painful because you cannot stop this story. It feels like you're riding a horse, but instead of leading her somewhere, it leads you. And you cannot possibly stop it. And at some points the plot is just fast and getting faster. Especially I noticed that when Patroclus decided to wear Achilles' armor and go fight Hector. It was such a painful scene for me to read because I knew the outcome of this battle. And I think even people that didn't read the Iliad knew what's going to happen. There's a beautiful scene between Achilles, Patroclus and Chiron that is a centaur. Chiron tells them how the gods decided to punish Hercules, and instead of punishing him, they punish his wife. And one of the boys asks, why would the gods punish his wife when she didn't do anything? And Chiron says that it's a common thing with heroes that those who are the closest to them suffer the most. Which what actually happens with this story. Patroclus dies first, defending Achilles' honor and defending Achilles' future fame. The other important thing that Chiron tells, which is also foreshadowing, he says that Achilles, you are so strong, people will know of your strength and they will want for you to fight their wars. It is sort of ominous because the whole war with Troy doesn't have to do anything with Achilles. For a long time he actually doesn't want to participate, and there is a big shift in his behavior when he actually starts killing people, because he realizes that it's what he's skilled in. When you look at it, all these men that this book mentions, all these men that participated, didn't have anything to do with Helen. They just wanted fame, gold and slaves. And we know that most of their lives they spent fighting in wars, and now they're pushing their legacy on younger boys so they will also grow up as ruthless warlords that only understand the language of metal. This story is both sad and beautiful, and I want to hear your opinions on what happened in this story and what you felt in general about it in the comments down below. Thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you soon in my next one. Bye!